President Biden is accusing Russia of attempting to spread misinformation ahead of the 2022 midterms. During a speech at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence Tuesday, Biden called on the intelligence community to take action against, quote, rampant disinformation. Sound familiar?
Democratic strategist Andrew Feldman and senior policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum, Inez Stepman, join us now to weigh in. Inez, let's start with you. Do you think that Russia has enough power for this disinformation to really even sway the American public in any way? Is it a threat, essentially?
Well, I think it's largely an excuse for our institutions, and here I'm not even particularly talking about Joe Biden. It's an excuse for our institutions to explain away why it is that they have lost so much public confidence, not just on the right, but in the center and even on the left. They've simply lost that trust and confidence from wide swaths of the American people, and it's easier to blame that on disinformation from Russia or the idea that, millions and millions and millions and millions of Americans are vicious racists. These are all ways to avoid responsibility for the fact that they themselves have squandered that institutional credibility. And I think it's just very, very convenient. Of course, Russia does try to introduce disinformation into every single election. They have been doing that for elections going far back before 2016. But the truth is that our institutions in America are doing a lot more damage than these kinds of disinformation campaigns from Russia.
Andrew, are Democrats too sold on the idea that Russian disinformation is responsible for all their problems and all their negative electoral outcomes?
No, I don't think that's what's going on here. I think we finally have a president who's speaking the truth about Russian disinformation and trying to hold them accountable, right? I think for 4 years we had someone that was, was buddy with Vladimir Putin, and they continued to get a pass on what was egregious behavior, and we finally have someone that's willing to call that out. But let's not be naive here. This has an extreme impact on our elections, especially in terms of, the messaging and the disinformation that's going on social media platforms like Facebook. So let's not kid ourselves here. This is something that Russia, the government of Russia, supports. They put millions and millions of dollars behind. And I'm glad we have a president that's finally speaking truth to power on this issue.
Yeah, I'm just never persuaded, though, that some small number of Russian accounts on Facebook are like swinging voters wildly. Oh, I wasn't going to vote for Trump, but now I am, especially because Trump seemed to improve among rural voters who are probably listening to the radio and watching television. Like the idea that it's Facebook's fault and Russia particularly, I don't know, always seemed to me like you're looking for a scapegoat. And then obviously all of or to some degree, the whole collusion working with the Trump campaign stuff didn't come to a lot. So and it seems like misinformation is now just everything Democrats don't like or agree with, not factual information or information shared by
Look, there's
Russia.
There's evidence that Russia is pushing out disinformation on the COVID vaccine and the virus in general here. Don't be naive and kid yourself. This isn't what's going on. This is absolutely what's going on. Look, is it every single issue that that is the reason why democratic outcomes don't happen the way we want electorally? No, but this is a big piece of it. This is not just one. This is a spiral, right? They start these efforts on social media. It's not a small number. There are thousands and thousands, arguably millions of bot accounts that are in people's feeds every single day, and then that spirals out. I have family members who believe this misinformation on the vaccine, and much of it comes from Russian trolls on social media. So I honestly say to you, Robbie, don't kid yourself here.
Well, this comes just weeks after the U.S. and Germany reached an agreement on the controversial Nord Stream pipeline, ending a dispute that spanned 3 administrations. Yesterday, a dozen Senate Republicans said they would block 2 of President Biden's Treasury Department nominations over the administration's decision not to sanction the pipeline project. Your reaction, Inez?
I mean, this is more serious. If you talk about, first of all, I can't let the idea that speaking truth to power from the U.S. president to Vladimir Putin, it should go the other way around. Even today, the U.S. is a much more powerful country. But yeah, this is what Putin actually cares about. And with regard, again, I'm sorry to go back, but I can't say that can't avoid saying something about the fact that, the reason that there is vaccine skepticism in the United States has a lot more to do with the fact that the CDC has flip-flopped all over the place with its recommendations. Look, I'm vaccinated. I'm very grateful for this vaccine. But the reason that there are such high numbers of people who are skeptical are because the CDC has a long track record now of
that is
unbelievable what it wants them to hear. It changed guidance on masks now for the third time. It changes these recommendations from month to month, and you have people like Dr. Fauci coming out and saying that he says things, admitting that he tries to shape public opinion. This is just reality. This is why people don't trust it. You should go join
Fox News on your own show. Maybe this is what they've been peddling for months here. This is unbelievable.
This is reality.
This is not reality. The reality is. Millions of people a night hear misinformation from Fox News on this vaccine. It's the number one. Is it Fox News or
Russia when people disagree with you?
It's both. It's both.
Yeah,
okay, so the American people are completely unable to take into account, to actually look at CDC pronouncements, to compare it to other studies. Again, I'm not a vaccine skeptic.
People in the places,
institutions for good reason.
Andrew,
you can't just blame it on Russia.
Andrew,
or on Fox News or some other quote unquote disinformation, machine. That's not why people disagree with you in this country.
Andrew, can I ask you, what would you like to do? What would you like to see happen with this disinformation? I mean, what would your solution be to the disinformation that you feel is coming from Russia?
We started to see it last week. Look, Sean Hannity, came out and talked to his viewers for the first time about the importance of getting this vaccine, and then you had him just do a double take 2 days later saying that wasn't what he was doing on his radio show. I mean, this is killing people. Fox News is killing people because of their misinformation, and they need to think long.
Sorry, what I'm asking you, Andrew, specifically is what would you like to see happen with the disinformation coming from Russia in particular? What would you like to
Russia,
have?
we need as most aggressive crackdowns as possible on this. We need to hold Facebook accountable and other platforms that allow this misinformation to be peddled. And look, Joe Biden is making it clear that his administration isn't going to give this a pass like the previous administration did for 4 years.
I mean, I agree that there are wrongful statements made about vaccines and coronavirus and such things in right-wing media, just as there are in mainstream media and in left-wing media. I don't think you can really plausibly say that it is of Russian origin the way certain people on the right have flamed these issues. I think that's actually misinformation to say that they're like being influenced somehow by Russia, which speaks to the point I was just making, that's a scapegoating that I see occurring in Democratic circles that is wrong and not persuasive. I'll give you the last word on this, Inez.
Look, at the end of the day, the reason there is so much quote unquote misinformation, many of which, of course, what's misinformation changes, right? So, for example, it was misinformation and taken down by social media sites when people speculated that the lab in Wuhan might have had something to do with the origin of the coronavirus. Then, of course, mainstream media and corporate media actually decided many months later that this was actually a pretty plausible theory. So what is and isn't misinformation changes month to month. I think that we need to let the American people decide. I actually have a lot more faith in the American people at large than I do right now in our institutions that are trying to gatekeep information because they've gotten it wrong, not just on coronavirus. They've gotten it wrong on a whole host of very important subjects, domestic and foreign, for so long that they have squandered the credibility that they used to have. And therefore, they want to blame, Russia, outside influence, sort of vicious bigotry being widespread in the United States. They want to blame all of those forces instead of just accepting responsibility and doing the hard work of rebuilding trust by being transparent and honest and unbiased and putting out information that people could actually feel like they could trust.
Well, Andrew, Inez, love the spirited conversation. Thank you guys so much for joining the show. Really appreciate having you both on. Next on Rising, Steve Donziger joins us to discuss his latest conviction and appeal, so be sure to stay with us.